it's okay for me to, be sometimes exposed to these attacks. I chose to put myself out there, but my family didn't. So that's one promise I made to them, that I will keep them out of this, because, there's one in the family is already tough enough. So I don't need more than one to be, subjected to sort of public scrutiny.
Come in.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, we are. You're in the right place.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, I'm Grace. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Grace.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hello. Hi, Priscilla.
Please take a seat.
Take a seat.
Thank you.
To start off, it's going to be a little bit more light-hearted.
Okay.
We have a short quiz for you.
Right.
So, this is recyclable,
Recyclables?
non-recyclables.
Aha.
Right.
Okay.
So, these are some items. We need you to tell us whether it's recyclable or not.
Wow.
So let's start off with this.
This is real?
It's not.
It's not. Okay. This is like composite of different materials. It's non-recyclables.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, not like this. You probably have to take out all the different parts because they're made of different plastics, different materials. They're not identical.
Oh, do you guys know this?
No, I thought everything can be recycled.
Yeah.
No. So anything that's a composite of things are generally not recyclable. You have to take it apart. So you have milk cartons. Strictly speaking, the cap is a PET, whereas the carton itself is paper composite. You have to separate the two.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next item. This is an award that we won.
Oh wow! This is precious, precious, not to be touched or to be cherished forever.
Yeah, but the guy has left, so I mean.
It's not every year that we win awards, so yeah, please let us know.
Well,
is it
again,
recyclable?
it's about whether it's made of the same material or not, and
I think there's some metal there, right?
there is some metal, so I think there will be contamination if you put it all into the plastic category, and I suspect the weight shows that there's something more inside to keep it the weight. Yeah, so there must be something else in there. So I will.
All right, next one. It's adorable little lion.
No, unfortunately, this is also non-recyclable.
Wait, is it?
Yeah.
Have you prepared all non-recyclable?
I mean,
No,
I'm gonna be
no,
honest. I thought
non-recyclable.
a lot of them would be.
Exactly, no. So this is not, all the soft toys are generally not. Again, of this theory that actually there are many materials in here. And once you put them together, let's say it's ground, it becomes contaminating each one. Yeah, so actually no. Anything else is recyclable? Yes, that's recyclable. Yes.
We did
Yes,
it.
plastic packaging, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Anything
Okay.
else?
The last one. This is
Your handphone is recyclable though.
really?
It's called e-waste.
E-waste, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a separate bin for that.
Yeah, so that's an exception, right? Because that's obviously composites. There's glass, there's metal,
okay.
there's everything.
Right.
But because it's so high value, the things in there are people that's prepared to spend time to take it apart and to separate the parts. Yeah.
Okay, I actually learned quite a lot. Did you all actually know all this?
I didn't know. I thought everything can be recycled.
Unfortunately, that's how it is now. The things the way that's being made, there's so much mixing that it's very hard to recycle. When we really think about recycling, it's really a material having another life as the same material. So paper for paper, plastic for plastic. So if we talk about textile, for example, if it's pure cotton, you can envisage that it's recycled. But if you have a mixture of polyester with cotton, with spandex, it's really a composition. So where do you even recycle it? Or if you have leather trimming, buttons, metal parts, some of you like some rock style, that studs on it. Again, it's a contamination. So that's why textile has been so challenging.
So, Minister, on that note, right? I mean, I just want to touch on about your portfolio.
Yes.
So we spoke about I guess it's a very lay person kind of understanding of what can be recycled, what cannot be recycled. And you spoke about how you need to kind of dismantle everything and to sort it out.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I mean, when people think of the green plan,
yes.
I guess it's a very lay person who like, oh yeah, I should use less plastic bags.
Yes.
Let's change my straws and that kind of stuff. So but surely it's more than that, right? I mean, what you're trying to do on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually the green plan, there are several pillars, right? One of the major pillars actually is about greening our environment. Why is that important? It's because of biodiversity. Increasingly, the more we know about nature, the more we realize that we don't know about the benefits of nature. Just being, the COVID years when you're out there walking, there's some benefits in terms of the air that we are breathing, the ions there is, surrounding us. In fact, just having the insects and the birds and all coming together, it gives us benefits as humanity. So we think that we need to restore biodiversity, even in a very urbanized place like Singapore. So that's going on. There's a lot of tree planting going on, but it's more than that. It's about looking after the green environment around us, increasing the biodiversity, the ecosystem. The second part is actually what you mentioned about sustainable living. It's the way that we work, it's the way that we walk, the way that we take transportation, the way that we live. Right? It's about recycling, it's about using more public transportation, it's about reducing waste, buying less sometimes, less food so that we don't waste the food at the end of a party, having consideration in your lifestyle that is, sustainable in the future. So it could be recycling. Good thing is that very often our day-to-day sort of waste has a lot of recyclables. Just think about, all the packaging that you have, all the cereal boxes that you throw away. There are many ways to recycle them. And good thing is that our blue box actually allow a composite. It's a mixture. So if you have that PET bottle that I mentioned, it's okay to put them in because we do have a facility to sort them out in general categories. Not glass though, not something like paper, where it's difficult to dismantle. So it doesn't involve too much of adjustments, we hope, by co-mingling. That's because we also do not want to have multiple trucks coming to your estates to collect, one for plastic, one for paper, one for e-waste, one for glass. It just doesn't make sense to have so many trucking activities that's going around on a daily basis. It's also about, how can we, have more electrification. The example would be, when we like to eat hot pot, and then we have this gas canister. The gas canister actually is carbon producing, it has greenhouse gas. But if you use electric pot, for example, electric cooker, you reduce it by 40-50%. Just because when all this heat generation is done in the power generator, it has efficiency that we can't achieve on a small stove basis. So many parts of the world, they are converting. In many parts of the world, the women folk are using, wood. They're using wood stick, they're using charcoal to cook on a daily basis. So some of our companies are going there, equipping them with either proper gas stove or electrified cooker, and therefore reducing the carbon footprint on a household basis. So there are many things that we can do on a day-to-day basis. In Singapore, electrification of our mobility system, EV, cars, and so on. That's really a major move to cut down, carbon footprint. It's also about how do we reuse our resources? How do we have circularity? In Singapore, we don't have bottling plants, not that many bottling plants. The major bottling plants are in Malaysia. So what we do is, say, glass bottles. A company in Singapore actually grind it into sand-like material, and then you use it to blast ship hulls, the body of the ship. It blasts, for example, the bridges, the foundation of the bridges that go into the water, for example. By doing that, it keeps a layer of protection, and it helps keep the bridges longer, gives it longer life, and also reuse a kind of waste. So that's not exactly recycling, but it's actually using waste for good use and reducing the waste that needs to be dumped into the landfill or to be treated. So that's also a way of achieving circularity. Food waste, for example, used for composting, That's quite a common concept. Food waste that's used for extraction of protein for animals, for example. The manufacturer that's making tau kwa, tauhu, they have a lot of waste from soy material that can be actually used for protein extraction, either for pets or for animal feeds. So that's another way of reducing waste and achieving circularity.
Or protein powder.
Protein powder as well. Yes. You don't need lah. You're okay.
No, he needs.
So the third one is about energy reset. As we mentioned, we're going to really move and look at how we can have renewable energy. Instead of having solar that we're going to install, we're also looking at importing from the region as well. So that's a major move to try to take coal, try to get gas out of our energy mix and have renewable energy in Singapore. Fourth one would be a green economy. We think that in this shift, which is really about finding an alternative to fossil, there's going to be many technologies that's going to be interesting. I mean, just think about how internet has really caused a revolution in the way that we do things. When we decarbonize, when we find a new form of energy that's actually doing the same as well. The way that we make things, the way that we move around. Instead of ICE cars, we're now EV. So that's just one example of many, many changes that's coming our way. So green economy is an exciting area for us. Last part is really something that it's like insurance. So if we can't get our mitigation in time, and we are going to get warmer world, we're going to get sea level rise, we're going to get storm surges, what do we do as a country? How do we protect our people? So we're talking about building protection measures. We're talking about making sure that we have water when there's long period of drought. We're also looking at how to reduce flooding when there's heavy rain in Singapore. So it's all that to do with a resiliency of the country. If we have really heavy rain in Singapore and it floods, right? Does it get into the underground system? Does it inundate our train system? Right? So you will see that all our MRT train station actually has this crest that goes up a few steps before it gets down, and that's really to raise it above the road level. But what if you have a shopping mall that's connected to this train station and the shopping mall is not protected? The water will find its way to get to the lowest point, right? And so it may be alternative pathway to get into a subway and really take out the subway, or even the power generating capacity. So these are all about long-term planning and hardening the infrastructure of our country. So that's really the 5 pillars that we have under the Green Plan.
There's a lot to do.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to do. Yeah. I mean, for Singapore, we're a small country, right? But I understand that, Minister, you have been representing us on the international stage, at COP27 and all. What do you think is so important for us, for, I guess, such a small country like us to have a voice on the international stage?
So the starting point must be that if we don't do anything, what are the consequences, right? Of course, we talked about how we're going to get a lot more extreme weather events in Singapore. We're talking about sea level rise and storm surges, which actually means that we're going to put hundreds of billions of dollars into just building seawalls and just protecting ourselves. We're talking about food production being affected, not just in Singapore, around the world. We import 90% of what we eat. So if the production is affected, even if we can find a quantity, because we don't eat a lot as a 6 million population, but the prices will be crazy. We're talking about fluctuation that's going to go with disruption. So we really need to get the global community to act on mitigation, to stop the warming now. So that's important for us to do so. We hope that we're able to influence discussion. Sometimes at the global level, it's like having 192 countries coming together, agreeing on one single solution is never that easy. So we try our best to facilitate discussion. Otherwise, we work on regional basis, or what we call plural lateral. Means that if you can't get 192, maybe we get 10, maybe we get 20 to start certain things going. So lots of interesting going in the shipping. At the maritime side, for example, we are trying out new fuels, we are trying out how to power the maritime differently. It's happening on the aviation side as well. It's happening definitely on the finance side. We're getting, probably 100 central bankers around the world to look at climate finance. So interesting things are happening, not just at COP, but also outside COP across many sectors.
So, I mean, Minister, you're in the MSC portfolio for a few years already. And I'm just wondering your take on people's perception on climate change, and maybe not just locally, but also internationally. Has it kind of really shifted, we are in a clear direction that, hey, we are in this together and we need to do more about all these things?
I think 10 years back, there's still a lot of debate about what's the science. Is this just an aberration? Because, if you look at sort of human history, there are, periods of time when you have this very, very, cold front that comes in, and then you have a hot period as well. So is this just a natural sort of alteration of weather patterns? 10 years ago, I would think that the meetings would involve quite a significant of the time just to debate whose science, whose data, whose model. 10 years on, I think the debate is not so much about whether it is humans' activity that's impacting the climate. That part, I think most people have accepted that we have an impact, because the charts are coming up so clear to us that it's actually human activity, it's actually greenhouse gas that's causing climate change. But how do we convince people that it is actually us? It's not some nebulous country in some faraway places that is causing this. It's actually every one of us in our day-to-day living. The moment we take a bus, the moment that we take a train, the moment we use a handphone, switch on the light, the air conditioning, we are actually producing carbon. And that we have a responsibility ourselves to also act on it. And this is where the biggest difficulty, I said, between countries in the world lies. The rich country, they have a responsibility because they were the ones that actually produce a lot. If you look at sort of their carbon accounts, they probably has the largest, amount that is emitted from the developed countries, because they were early adopters. They were already having air conditioning, dishwasher, washing machine, refrigerator before the rest of the world know even what are those things, right? So they started the process. They started having cars. They were driving a lot and consuming a lot of big cars, and therefore producing a lot. But now to say that, do we all have responsibility, or is it just the rich country, the developed countries, that has the responsibility to mitigate? And this is where we had this discussion, because developed countries also look at developing countries and say, if you're going to need electricity to power up your community, why go into coal-fired power plants now? If you know that it's the most pollutive, can we help you to use renewable? And the developing countries will say, yes, that's a nice idea, but I have no grid, I have no infrastructure. So you will have to help me to fund those. And this is where this funding issue, who pays, whose responsibility, and how can we make this capital for green technology work in the world? That's the biggest sort of argument. At what pace, who should do it more, and whose responsibility is it to fund?
You spoke about the science 10 years ago, I'm just wondering, even now, I'm sure there are still people who don't believe in the climate change. Maybe they just think like you mentioned, it's a period, it's a very hot season now, maybe 100 years later it'll be better. I guess what's the message, or what do you want to say to such people?
Well, the graphs, the data are actually very clear. The warming has to do with, human activity, and you can actually trace it to sort of like invention of certain things. When you have a car, it goes up a bit, all that actually can prove some points. But the more important question is that if we don't do anything, right, and if our hypothesis is correct, but we choose not to do anything, what will be the consequences? It's almost like saying that, we're all in the bus together and we are heading into a canyon. Your postulation is that, don't worry, at the very last minute, the driver will step on the brake or will, take a turn. But what if he doesn't? Should we all just keep quiet and just let the driver do its work? Or do we want to say, hey, someone say, hey, we should, do something about it, right? So I think the majority now says that, hey, we need to do something. There's still some people who choose not to believe, not because I think they really do not believe about climate change, it's because they don't want to have the consequences of acting on it. Because they know that will be difficult, that will be costly even, that will be inconvenience.
It's more of like a selfish thing, right? It's something that the next generation has to pay for this bill, right? I don't care.
I wouldn't want to say that their attitude is cavalier, but I can understand that in many societies, it's really about feeding your people and even giving them the very basic source of energy. So to them, coal-fired power plant is the cheapest, is the easiest to start off. To have it replaced by renewable, it takes a lot more money, it takes a lot more effort. And sometimes the reality is that you just have to, you can't make the trade-off, you see. So I think it's not fair to just, put all the blame on these people who choose the sort of conventional way, but I think it's upon us to find solutions for them.
Right.
Okay, Minister, so we've talked a bit about your MSE portfolio, right? But I think beyond that, you were the first female full minister to helm a ministry. And of course, this is the biggest question I have to ask. Do you think Singapore is ready for a female prime minister?
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
Yes, of course. I think that, we won't know until the situation presents itself. It's like we never had a woman CEO for DBS, and then it happens. So I was the first CFO for PSA, I was the first CEO for PSA. You were not told, right, this is the moment that we are ready. But when the situation presents itself, and then the women step up and say, yes, I want it, I want to take it, I've been preparing myself for it, there you have it. So, did we expect the first woman president? But we have the first woman president.
It's a matter of time, right?
It's a matter of time. So I think, why do I say that we are ready? It's because I think if you look at the women's accessibility to education and women's opportunity that's given to women the last few decades, yeah, I think we have the capability and experience among women.
And actually, just jumping on that, right? Of course, in cabinet as of now, there are only 3 female ministers. So what is it like actually being in a male-dominant environment?
The washroom is always easy to get in.
Yeah, it is important.
It is, yeah. That's why it's the other way around. The mall is like a long queue.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I think we bring our perspective. As I said, we are increasingly sort of gender blind. But that doesn't mean that we are, immune to the differences. We are different. We have different physiological makeup. We are built differently. We have different roles in the family. So I think that there are differences between what a man would need and what a woman would need in the society. And therefore, I think politically, we do have sort of different wants and expectations, and it's important for women to be represented. And women as a population, I think we account for slightly more than 50%, so I think it's only rightly so that we have, our share of voices. It took us some time to get women ministers, as I said, because if you look at sort of history, I count myself as a sort of Singapore, same age as Singapore. And so my experience actually tracks the development of Singapore. It's during my time that education was made accessible, was made free. It wasn't before. My mother's generation didn't have that. My mother has to stop work early because they couldn't afford education. So to come to my time, my generation, we were given, opportunity, and it's these things, all this PSLE, streaming and all that actually allow a more meritocratic system. That if you work hard, you do just as well as the boys, you get the chance, right? Just as the boys going on to the school of your choice in secondary school and the university. So I think that from a time when women were not given a fair opportunity, very often in a large family at that time, a family of 7 or 8 children, if you don't have enough money, it's the boys that get the education opportunity, not the women, not the girls. So obviously that sort of bias in favor of men. And the role of women in the society, in the family, for example, women have lived for decades thinking that their role is in the family as a caregiver and get married and then stay at home to have children. That took us several decades to sort of change that mindset. I think now we are a lot more used to sort of dual income family, that women want more than just staying at home. They want their own career, we have our own aspiration. And that means that more women will have that experience of running companies, running businesses, being entrepreneurial, being professional, good in their field, and then they will have enough of them with the right sort of experience and credentials to be Prime Minister.
Minister, you mentioned about your mother, and I understand that you grew up with a lot of inspiration. I mean, around strong female role models, right? I mean,
Yes,
your grandmother was a principal of Nanyang Girls High.
Yes.
Did that kind of shape your view on life, maybe,
Absolutely, because of my grandmother. My grandmother was actually hired as a foreign talent from China to run a school in Singapore. And why do we have that school? It's because of this lack of attention on women's education. So she was brought here to run a girls' school. And why a girls' school? Because the parents at that time didn't want the girls to mix with the boys. It's not a time when you can, 16, 17 years old to play around. No, that's not the way. Girls have to be kept, out of, that mixing of the boys, and they have to be in their own way, and they're kept in the family and so on. So that was why it was needed to have a school that was, created for girls. And without this, a lot of parents would choose not to send their girls to school because it means that you are opening up, you are allowing the girls to mix with the boys before they are married. So that's really that's frowned upon, right? And so my grandmother was really quite an enlightened lady, studied in Europe and so on. And so she worked through her adult life. And my mother similarly worked as a nurse until she retired at 50-something. And it's like, to me, women and working and having family, there's no conflict. You can do all that because I have these 2 role models. So they were the one who told me or taught me in a very concrete way that it is possible for women to really have both, right? Family as well as, work, meaningful work. And so I've never thought that, the option of marry and just stay home, that has never featured in my aspiration.
You have 3 children of your own, and how is that like for you, with your mom and your grandmother being a role model? How do you take that into your own life?
Well, my mother has shown me as a nurse, and a nurse with shift work some more. I remember that she has to do night shift, 9 to 6 the next day. And she managed. And so I think she gave me a lot of confidence that it is possible. But she did it with help from extended family. I was living with my maternal grandmother. We also have some domestic help. So it was like everyone just pulling, and we were living really in an extended family, probably 10 or 11 together. And we help each other, and I think that's how it gave me the confidence. So after I got married and started to have my own family, I moved back with my parents to stay with my mom and my dad, and they were a great help, so they helped me with a lot of sort of child minding. And sometimes when the child is sick, my mom will look after him on my behalf, which is a great help. So I think that kind of family structure and support has been my way of managing all the stresses in life. And yeah.
Do you think if people don't have that role model in their life, or especially for women, do you think they're missing out?
I think it's important to have role models. That's why I think we are very big on having mentors and also having some, kind of networking for young women to get access to role models. Not just me, but there are many women leaders out there, whether in the business or sports or arts, who have managed to balance multiple roles in their lives successfully. So I think it's really for each one of us, young women like yourself, to look at the women and say, okay, how did she manage? And is it something that I can learn from her? Just like I'm learning from some of the younger role models as well, how they manage their social media handlers and accounts.
And talking about social media, I see that you're on Instagram and also Facebook. Do you like social media? Do you like to be online? Are you chronically online, or do you keep up with the times?
Increasingly so, because I think increasingly that has been a very convenient way of getting information. And for example, when I was in Paris getting ready for the opening, and our uniform involves a scarf. So it's like, how do you tie a scarf? Instagram, right?
Oh,
so it's great for information, quick learning tips, and so on. So I think I'm beginning to embrace it, but I am a little bit less comfortable like putting every part of my life on the social media. So you can hardly see me posting like the food I'm eating. Yeah, I just tend to enjoy the moment of eating the food, or not having, say, stop, let me take photo first. So no, I like to eat my food hot when it's served. So there is a trade-off, I think, in terms of embracing social media. I embrace it. I put some parts of my work online. I read quite a lot of it to get the feel of what's the contemporary issues, but not to the extent of my entire life. Social media.
Yeah, I guess everyone uses social media differently,
yes,
right? Yeah.
What do you use it for?
What do I use it for? Actually, same. Like, I don't know a lot of things, so if I need to like search for something, I'll just go on TikTok or Instagram, and there will always be people like posting up like tutorials or like information. It's actually
Yes, absolutely. So I get inspiration for my exercises. Especially, when they have these things, exercise for women above a certain age. I shall not name the age, but that's a kind of inspiration for me.
Women under 30, you mean?
Thank you.
Yes.
And then I'm turning vegetarian, so I like to look for recipe, good vegetarian recipe. And then when I found something that I like, I send it over to my domestic helper. She's more savvy on the social media than I am. So it's a great way to connect and get resources.
That's so interesting actually, because I don't know how you use your social media, but for me it's like, it's part of my job also to read the news all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I realized that actually a lot of people just use social media very differently from how I do. And talking about your own social media accounts, right? Do you perhaps have any like social media strategy like you want to come up with?
So now I think I've been told that reels and videos work better, so I've been trying to do more of that, and then from time to time you learn some techniques like doing a kind of cover. I don't know what you call it technically, but it's like step over a phone, a camera or something like that. Transition.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and then you learn from like how do you make a photo look more interesting, a different angle, different composition. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but when I looked at some interesting tutorials, I would say, that looks interesting. Learning.
Have you heard about the term girl boss?
So I think the hashtag probably has some negative connotation of being a bit aggressive and demanding, maybe fussy. Yeah, so I think it's a kind of traits that you see in some women bosses. You do see that trait in male bosses as well, but somehow you don't see people putting a hashtag boy boss because it's like it's accepted that, you know, if you are a male CEO, it's okay for you to be demanding, aggressive, and, you know, overpowering. But when you are a female, that seems to be, oh, why are you like that, you know?
How do you deal with this? I thought it's quite interesting because I have a 10-year-old girl. I think she wants to be a lot of things. She wants to be a fashion designer and all these things. But I say, hey, you know, why don't you be a boss? You know, like just manage people and all. She was like, but I'm a girl. That kind of stuff. So I find it hard to say, hey, look beyond your gender, right? You can be a boss. You know, we talk about the different stereotypes, you know,
yes.
But it's the same. Any boss will want to be assertive and all, but doesn't bring the gender in the picture.
Well, I suppose actually, first of all, I think different companies, organizations require different types of leaders. There are some where, you know, you do need very assertive. Maybe you're dealing with a company that needs very quick decision. So I can imagine that if you're running a hospital, hey, no time to sit down and have a coffee, right? You just need to like make decision quickly and, you know, get to the task done, right? So I think certain leadership style is needed for certain, it has to be relevant to its operation and its organization. But then we have to be comfortable in our own skin. So if you're not the kind of assertive, aggressive person, I mean, don't try to be. And maybe you're just not comfortable with the kind of decision-making style, and you should work yourself out into something that's more comfortable. It's only when you are really having the fit of your style and the nature of work, then it's sustainable. Because otherwise you're always fighting against yourself, that you're always held to a different standard that you yourself inherently is uncomfortable. So I think that's really number one. Find the work, find the organization that, you know, you're comfortable with. Not everyone sort of go into a CEO position directly. There are some who go through sort of like, for me, I went through a finance track, right? So I didn't go through the operations. But why did I get a role as a CEO as finance? Because the company that I was involved in was actually had a very bad patch. It was, you know, it lost customer, it lost market share, and we went through retrenchment. And that situation needed someone that is good in finance, but also someone that can repair the hurt. Because after a retrenchment, the organization doesn't need, you know, another sort of taskmaster to tell you that you need to run faster. It's a time when people need to build up trust again with the organization and to have empathy in leadership, in management. So I think that was a timely move for someone like me to get in. And I would say that I'm not one of those that would say, oh, I'm going to give you such tasks, I'm going to shout at you, going to like really tear you down in order to get work done. I don't think I need to do that. I have my own style and I have to make it effective. You know. So we have to find our own ways of being an effective manager or a boss. I think women, though, tend to have some commonality. We tend to want to make the system work. In other words, if we see that things are not moving correctly, we will want to say, hey, can you make this way so that, you know, we can run it as a system and not have the system sort of work around the person. So I think women tend to have that reputation is because we looked into the detail and we want to say, hey, I want to fix this thing. Whereas men will probably say, okay, good job, let's get on to the next one, you know. So that's, of course, again, generalizing and stereotyping. But because of the difference in our, maybe it's our attributes, that sometimes you have some stereotype.
Talking about those negative perceptions people have towards female leaders, right? You, for example, PSA, you're a CEO and then a minister. No matter what, you can't run away from those negative perceptions. No matter how you try to change change things. So personally, how do you deal with it? Because I mean, I must say, for me, right, I do experience it sometimes at work. And even though people don't say things outright to my face, I do know that, I just know they're talking behind my back, you know.
Yes, of
And
course.
yeah, so it's kind of difficult sometimes to deal with
Sometimes real, sometimes perceived, though. Yeah.
True. Okay, I gotta go back and think now.
Yeah. Sometimes real, sometimes perceived. But I believe in this. If it's something that you can influence, it's an issue that you can influence, you can make yourself better, by all means, improve yourself. If you think that the person has a valid point, the person is going to help you be a better person. So those feedback will actually make you improve and be a better person of yourself. But if that's not something that you can influence, I mean, just say that, oh, you're ugly. Hey, there's nothing I can do about that, right? Thanks, mom and dad, right? Yeah, so then don't let that affect you at all. Because if you're allowing that to influence you, you are being managed by this person. That person has a way to lead you around.
Right.
So you just have to say that, hey, you know, this person probably not something that I can do, not something that I can take in. I just got to ignore that, you know.
But have you ever felt like you had to portray yourself in a certain way because you are a female leader? Perhaps, you know, the way you talk, or, you know, the way you dress sometimes. Because, I mean, I don't actively do it, but sometimes I do kind of feel that pressure, like as a female leader, I have to be more proper per se. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, I think there is a bit of that. For example, especially if you're a public figure, somehow there's more attention, you know, being put on your how you look, appear, and actually in this age of social media, you have to be, you know, what do you call it? You have to be attractive, right? To get that eyeball as well. So there's some emphasis on aesthetics. But on the other hand, I think the male also gets that too, to be a public figure as well these days, right? And I think the pressure is the same. So whether you are a leader or not, everybody, I think that's why we have this stress on, you know, your looks and so on, because it's just a world that is full of images, and you're just trying to get an eyeball onto your image, right? And again, you know, there's certain things that I can improve upon. If you say that, oh, you know, that dress doesn't look very nice, I'll look at it and it's like, and I'll ask myself, is it true? If it's not, then I say, okay, I'll just laugh it off. For example, in the swearing in, I wore this chipao that is in green and blue. Someone said it's a kueh salad or something. Yeah, it's a blue and green kueh. I like that dress. I'm going to continue to wear that. So,
you know, this topic of you know, being a woman at a male-dominant place and being a female leader, all that aside, as a public figure yourself, regardless of your gender, it's very difficult to run away from those negative comments, right? It can be about anything. And it's also difficult for you to protect your private life. So I'm genuinely curious to know, like, how do you actually deal with this?
They do sometimes affect me. And I remember that there was once when there were a lot of negative comments. This was actually after the Olympics in 2016. You know, there were people who say that, oh, you know, why are you only now coming to stand next to Joseph Schooling, and you didn't do anything, and so there was a lot of negative comments. And I think I must have been really jet lagged because it was flying, you know, all the way back from Rio to Singapore, and it was really affected. I couldn't sleep, so I stayed wide awake thinking about those comments. Then again, I realized I can really be affected by that, or I really need to find a way to manage it. So it's always a constant, you know, kind of struggle. If I see that there are certain of these, I would recognize the pattern, whether the person actually, there's all three types of comments, right, on your Instagram or your Facebook. There's ones that's always very supportive, gives you the thumbs up. And then there's some who's like write very long set of comments. And sometimes you have to read it like 2 or 3 times before you will say, okay, this guy actually has good intentions beneath that. Maybe it's the way that he communicates, he chooses his words, and therefore it could come as awkward in the beginning. And then you have to start thinking. And then there's a third type, is really just out there to put you down. And you sort of learn to like just ignore the third one and pay some attention on the second one and see how you can, you know, incorporate the comments. But it is not easy. And as a mother, I would always worry about my family. It's okay for me to, you know, be sometimes exposed to these attacks. I chose to put myself out there, but my family didn't. So that's one promise I made to them, that I will keep them out of this, because, you know, there's one in the family is already tough enough. So I don't need more than one to be, you know, subjected to sort of public scrutiny. So you don't quite see my family in my social media images.
But surely it's hard, right? I mean, your children will read the comments and maybe affected also, looking at all the nasty remarks and all. How do they come to terms with such?
You will be surprised that actually my children are not very active on social media to start with. And even if they do, their activity is quite limited to their own friends. Sometimes they read what I post, and they don't really go into the comments very much as well. I think this is like years of protecting themselves as well. And sometimes when they do, they will come and like put an arm around my shoulder and say, oh, you know, ignore these people, no, don't worry, we are here to support you. I mean, they're just being a supportive sons. So yeah, they're very supportive, I would say.
I guess if you could, turn back time, you know, would you have still made the same decision to enter politics and public?
Oh, no doubt about this, because I think the 18 years as an MP, actually, there are a lot of difficult moments, but the kind of impact and also the gratification is immense as well, from seeing what you have done, the responses that you get from your residents, from Singaporeans, you know, and it's very often it's difficult to see that when you're dealing with issues on a day-to-day basis. But it's like every 5, 10, 15 years, and then now 18 years, you celebrate 59, and then you look at, you know, 18 years back and says, yeah, you know, there's some of my fingerprints here, and you're sort of like, okay, that's something that I've done, and I'm quite proud of what I've done. Particularly, I think that when you have a chance to think with experience, also when you are posted to different sort of ministries, and then when you have time to also look at policies, compare with other systems, then it's like, okay, you know, those were difficult, those were unpopular, but we're quite glad that, you know, we have done so. An example would be like CPF. But now when I go to sometimes, you know, functions or sometimes funeral wakes, and then someone died of serious illnesses, and then I say, oh, you know, was it very tough on you financially? They say, oh, luckily we have all this MediSave, we have all this that's, you know, forced savings that we had, and thank God that we have this, that we have retirement. So it's moments like this that sort of give you the encouragement and support to carry on.
And you know, I mean, for almost 2 decades actually, you've been working in the public service. So I must say it must be tough on you, like mentally and also physically. So how do you balance your work life?
For me, exercise is very important. I exercise maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 days a week. It's a way for me to sort of mark the difference of the day, different phases of the day, particularly during COVID. Because when you work from home, you find that if you're just working from home from morning to night, the day is very, very long. So I sort of intersperse it with an exercise, half an hour, 1 hour or so. It sort of cuts up and say, okay, this is the first part of the work. and this is in another part. It gives a rhythm, a cadence to me that's more manageable. And that 1 hour that I have, either you go for a walk or you go for a run or you go for something else, it's always a time to sort of switch off and reset the mind. So that has been a sort of practice that I have. So now, either in a very early morning, they'll go for a yoga class, or I'll go for a run in the evening. But really having exercise every day, almost every day, it's helping me to cope with stress as well.
But actually, I'm just curious now. Like, you probably have a really busy schedule.
Yeah. So I start very early in the morning.
Right.
My class may be from 7 to 8. Yeah, and then I will just, grab my gym bag to the office, I take a shower and I get ready for the day. Or sometimes in the evening. In the evening, I usually just run around the office or the parliament, around the Marina Bay. That's like 30 minutes of run. Yeah, it's quite doable.
Actually, now, come to think of it, right, since you are a minister yourself, I'm kind of curious, when you go for runs, right, do you have bodyguards following you?
Sometimes my bodyguards will run with me. Sometimes I'm alone. Sometimes I go on alone, depending on the situation. I tend not to hold them back. If I go early in the morning, I don't ask them to come early to join me. So I ask them to come after I've done my exercise. So depending on my schedule.
Can they keep up with you?
Of course. Yeah,
really?
Of course.
I'm sure they're like,
our
back tired.
Our SOs are well trained.
That's so interesting. I'm just imagining if I go for a run and then there are people like following me.
Oh, not people, just one, because
just
we
one?
only have one. Yeah,
Okay.
unless you are the DPM or the PM. So you just have one. Yeah,
One day.
Why not? But the running is actually to me, because even on my family holidays, we are a family that likes outdoor. So we do a lot of hiking together and we run together. So the running that I do here is really get me ready for those holiday hikes that we do together as a family. Yeah. So when I travel overseas for work, I will always bring a pair of my joggers, and I will run, especially in some places where it's located in a nice sort of city area. European city, for example, is always very nice to run around.
Going back to your work, I'm pretty sure, you spoke just now, you yourself also, I think is a role model for a lot of young women. So do you have any advice on women who want to join politics or maybe even be a girl boss?
Yeah, I think first of all is have confidence in yourself. Very often women have this imposter syndrome. They always think that they don't deserve to be there, and then they underestimate themselves. So I think have confidence. There's a lot in you, and you can actually grow with the job as well. The second really is to be very clear about your motivation, because if it's just if that position, or whether be an MP or a minister, it's just to get publicity, then that's the wrong motivation, because there are easier way to be in a public spotlight than in politics. It's hard work. Right. The third is really to be mentally strong for it, because as we spoke earlier, it's one where you need a lot of empathy in order to empathize with the people, to understand what they're going through, and yet you are subjected to a lot of attacks. So how do you let yourself be vulnerable, and at the same time having to protect yourselves from the naysayers, from unrealistic expectations, or from people who just think that you must have time for them, So that's the kind of dilemma, and sometimes it's a tension that women or MPs have to deal with.
Actually, would you recommend like a young woman to enter politics?
Of course. I mean, it's not a job in a way, it's a calling. But it is really a duty and a responsibility that is so important. If we don't have the right people and the good people at the political level, the country can easily go downhill. Then just look around us and you can tell, right? And so I always think that Singapore has the longevity, provided that we have good people at all levels, at the public service, at government, at business people, and keep the system clean and efficient.
Now, just curious, we're going to look forward into the future, right? What do you actually envision, or what do you hope to see? Perhaps maybe, within your ministry first and then beyond within Singapore politics?
I really hope that Singaporean as a group, we talked about, all of us collectively, actually can be a kind and considerate people. When I say that, I mean that, when you are at the hawker centres, you won't just throw a soiled toilet tissue paper for the cleaners to pick up. Like, you would dispose it nicely. You have a care and concern with one another. You don't, sort of smoke when you're not supposed to. When you see vulnerable people in the park, you will definitely not smoke around them, for example. It's not so much about what the rules say, but really what you as a human being would do around people. If you see someone in need, of help, that you will step out and help that person. If you see that, there's someone on a wheelchair in front of you, you will give way. Just that kinder population, not because of fines or penalties, that you return your tray not because there's a fine or there's a police person around, you don't throw rubbish indiscriminately, not because there's enforcement officer, but because you know that you are part of the environment. You have a duty to keep this place clean, hygienic for the next person, right? So I really hope that we can be a kinder and more considerate population.
And what about you, like for yourself? Do you have any future goals that you have?
I want to be a grandmother. Okay, don't say this. My son will kill me.
This is a very big hint.
I very much like to be a grandmother. No, I hope to be a mentor. I hope to be a mentor to many more men or women who wants to, do good. In the areas that we are involved in, whether it's in recycling, resource circularity, sustainability, finance, I think there's a lot that we can do together. And I think that in the next few decades, we expect massive changes in the way that we make things, in the way that we move things, the way that we use things, we throw things. So this whole set of changes, systemic changes, would actually need to be driven by young people, right? Because if you think about it, if you are in your 20s, you will be about 50s, come 2050, you'll probably be a CEO. So when we talk about net zero, right? We talk about net zero 2050, you will be in that driver's seat. You will be the CEO, you will be the leader, you will be decision maker. And so I think we need to allow space for young people to come through and be the leader that they wish in 3 decades' time.
Okay, I guess on that note, we've learned so much about you today.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for wanting to know about me.
Yeah, I mean, as women ourselves, I think it's not always we get to talk to female leaders, and I think it's a very good opportunity for us to ask questions related to.
Yeah, maybe just one point to add. There are different priorities at different parts of your life, stages of your life. There are some stages when, when children are obviously a lot more important. I have actually been a stay-home mom for a year. So that was when, I've said this story before, so if you have heard it before, please excuse me. My second, I was traveling a lot for work, and I left for a business trip when my second was crawling, and then after I returned, he was walking. He took his first step without me being around, and I really regretted that. So I said, no, I'm not going to, miss those life stages of his anymore. So I stayed home to just enjoy their company. And then I realized I wasn't very happy. So I decided to go back to work, but I've, chose a job that's a lot more homebound, less traveling, a lot more sort of protected time. And so in a way, it's like, okay, pay cut, but it's okay, you sort of take it in a different gear, slow it down a little. And then when you're ready, you can always come back up. So when we talked about managing sort of career and family, it doesn't mean that they are always equally important. There are certain times when family is important. So I tell all the expecting ladies that, you know, when you are heavily pregnant, please don't risk your health, right? Go and enjoy your pregnancy, especially, you know, your delivery and your new baby. Forget about work for the next few months. And when you're ready, come back and give it, you know, your full concentration and, you know.
Yeah, again, I should have brought a notebook to like write down my notes.
It's all in the video.
It's difficult. Okay, yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Minister.
for the chance.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you so much, Minister. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.